Hey, I'm Warren Sprouse. It's the Bible Forum. We're here every Sunday night from 8 to 10 p.m. Love for you to join us live. Get in the chat room. We got a bunch of folks over here. But if not, you can catch us on Facebook, on the BibleForum.net website. There's a video screen, Twitter, a whole bunch of stuff. This ministry called the Bible Forum is sponsored by a nonprofit corporation called Alternatives, Biblical Counseling and Education. I spent a lot of years studying counseling, doing counseling. I'm not a psychologist. I'm not a psychiatrist. I don't want to be. I do biblical counseling, which isn't secular on any level. But what it is that the Bible knows that psychology either does not know or does not want to know is that the brain is not the mind. If you've listened to this show, watched this show at any point in the last 17 years, you would know that about me. You would know that I get very concerned, upset when they start making this comparison. You have a mental disorder. What does that mean? It means your mind is disordered. And they do brain studies. And they give you electroshock therapy. And they give you medications, things to change the way your brain works. As if the brain is the mind. Well, here's a story from the Canadian Broadcasting Company. It aired this past Sunday about craniopacus twins. I picked it up from something called Evolution News. Craniopacus twins share a brain, but they have distinct personalities. And what that says is that a human being is more than a brain. Something the psychological community is hard-pressed to admit. Their therapies are almost all focused on brain waves and brain activity and brain function and brain orientation. Now, I got to tell you, not all psychological practitioners believe that and go that way. But that's the philosophy that undergirds that system. It is rare to find a practitioner who does not equate a practiced behavior with a psychological disorder. And what is disordered? Well, it's your psyche. Well, can't that be fixed? Well, perhaps with medication, perhaps with talk therapy, with a whole repatterning of your life. But you'll probably never be completely normal, whatever that is, cured. But what if it's a brain disorder, meaning it's chemical? Or it's physiological? Well, if that pops up, then you're broken. And you cannot be fixed. You can modify behavior and attitudes, but you're not going to ever be completely well or made whole. And the chemical and physical studies of the brain aid them in their effort to understand what's going on. So when you go to one of these people with a problem and they tell you that you have a disorder, a psychological disorder, what are they really saying? Well, in one case, they may be talking about your brain. I mean, they're talking about the mind. Isn't that the brain? And we do that. They're talking about the personality. Where does this personality come from? Doesn't it come from your brain? And if it doesn't come from your brain, how are you going to fix it? Is it something in my... What is this? if you have a problem and you go basically to a secular psychiatrist, they're going to put you through counseling. You're going to come every week for a half hour, an hour, whatever it is, or they're going to give you a pill. You have biological psychiatrists or psychologists, and you have the other kind. What do they call that kind? When they talk to you. But here we have two little girls whose brains are connected. Their little heads are not unconnected. There's no way to separate them. One skull has grown into the other skull, and that's it. And they have a brain. They have distinct personalities, but they share the same brain. And the point here is that a human being is more than a brain. Something apparently beyond the physical is what makes us human. Now, the Canadian Broadcasting Company described the girls' situation, saying the structure of the twins' brains makes them unique in the world. Their brains are connected by a thalamic bridge, connecting the thalamus of one with that of the other. The thalamus acts like a switchboard, relaying sensory and motor signals and regulating consciousness. As a result of the connection, Tatiana can see out of both of Krista's eyes. Krista can only see out of one of Tatiana's eyes. They also share motor control of each other's limbs and the senses of touch and taste. I put something in my mouth, she can taste it. The girls have even said they can share thoughts with one another. Now, watching them, I got to tell you, it's sad. Sad that these girls have to deal with fragile health due to their conjoined brains, and that their lives are so incredibly linked and limited, and at the same time inspiring and beautiful. Reminds us of the inherent worth of human life and the miracle of personhood. Mom could have aborted these children. Doctors knew this was happening. And Mom said, no way, not doing it. We're having this child, these children. They remind us of the miracle of personhood. The distinct personalities that are evident in these two girls, even though they share the same brain, teaches us that there's something more to a person than his or her physical wiring. David Klinghoffer points out in Evolution News, he says, quote, insofar as the mind subsumes the personality, these girls do not share a mind. Though together all the time, by physical necessity, their spirits are distinct with very different personalities. He concludes in his article saying that observing these twins, tends to refute the rigid materialistic equation of mind with brain. Did I tell you these girls are about 10 or 11 years old? The psychological community hasn't changed their basic principle, the basic fundamental thing that the brain is the mind. Well, the mind is the brain. Will these girls change, or will a circumstance change? It doesn't look like it. Their testimony hasn't really had much impact on the psychological community. But if my bad or my wrong behavior, my bad or my wrong attitude or way of thinking is a product of my brain, by extension my chemistry, then it's not my fault. Yeah, I'm a murderer, serial murderer. I'm an adulterer, I'm a wife beater, whatever it might be, a thief, compulsive, but none of that's my fault. I'm depressed all the time. And as a result, I drink a lot and can't keep a job. But that's not my fault either. I have a mental disorder. The doctor said so. I'm on disability. I have a pension because I have this disorder. But what if the mind is not the brain? What if the mind is part of our non-physical being? What if the mind is conditioned by both external and internal experiences and influences? What if it's simply because I'm lazy, selfish, prideful, insecure, domineering? Well, then the solution would lie with me. And if I'm trying to help you and you have this problem and you're not willing to make the necessary changes with or without help, then there's nothing more I can do for you. Then what? Well, if everybody adopted that logical conclusion, the mental health community would go broke. They'd go out of business. They'd be done. And then we'd have to start looking at parents and say, well, now what did you do? We would have to look at the extended family, at the community standards, at the educational system. We'd have to look at the drug companies and see what it is they're doing. We might actually fix some things. But it's simpler to just maintain that a person's behavior or attitudinal problems are chemical, biological, and relational. It's simpler to just label everything a mental disorder, even though we don't know what the mind is, and treat it like a chemical problem. The Bible calls selfishness a sin. And sins are to be rejected. Sins are to be repented of. Now, in the psychological community, you have behavioral psychologists, psychiatrists, and you have the other kind. I can't think what the other kind are called now. But the behavioral people are looking at this kind of thing. What is it in your behavior that has caused you to cross over the line and be like this? Where the other group is looking at, it's not your fault. You have a mental disorder. And we can just talk to you and give you medication and we can kind of level everything out. We'll make it so that you can live with your problem. No, we can't cure it, but we can help you tolerate it. The Bible calls us to treat one another lovingly, the way we would treat ourselves. When it comes to anger, disrespect, rudeness, the Bible calls these things sins. These are not disorders, mental or otherwise. They're sins. And when it comes to finding help, our help is in a change of heart that then expresses itself in a change of behavior and a change of thought until we fix the problems. Not to label somebody that they have a mental disorder, they're broken, and there's nothing we can do about it, and soak them for money. These little girls have a really, really rough road ahead. But they're teaching us so much. I wonder if anybody's listening.